Hi, I'm Jim Voss. I'm one of the owners here at Van's Gun Blue, and I'm going to run you through the process of bluing a piece of steel. It doesn't have to be a gun barrel like this one is. It could be any piece of steel or metal artisan project that you're working on, or a craft. But there's some steps that you don't want to miss when you're bluing because the preparation is so important. First of all, you want to make sure the condition of the steel is in the condition you want it to be in once you're done bluing, because bluing won't cover up imperfections in the steel. This barrel was in pretty rough shape. It had some pitting in it. I have done some sanding to it, but I am going to go ahead and take some 1000 grit sandpaper, which I've cut into strips, and go ahead and sand down this barrel just a little bit more before we get started. When the sandpaper is cut into strips, you can easily sand a barrel for any cylindrical object using this method without creating excessive scratches that you'll need to take care of later. And now that the steel's in the condition that I want it to be in, the next thing I want to do is to clean it really well and degrease it. For degreasing, you can use a number of things. You could use Dawn dishwasher soap. You could use isopropyl alcohol. For heavier oils and greases, acetone works fantastic. I'm going to use brake parts cleaner for this project just because it's easy to apply and it gets into all the nooks and crannies of the project. And so for that, I'm just going to simply spray that on the area that I'm going to be bluing and then wipe it dry, removing all the oils and the grease that could interfere with the bluing process. Now, we're almost ready to blue. The next thing that I like to do is to heat the steel, warm it up a little bit, open the pores of the steel. It makes it more accepting to the bluing. You can use a hair dryer. I'm going to use a heat gun. Some people will put their steel in an oven, a warm oven. A hair dryer is also fine. If you're in a very warm climate, maybe you don't even want to do this step because your steel is warm enough the way it is. But one of the things I'd like to stress with heating the steel is you don't have to go crazy with the heat. You want to make sure you can still handle it safely. You don't want to wreck the integrity of the steel. Just get it nice and warm. And now we're ready to blue. Also at this point, touching the steel is not a good idea because your fingers can introduce oils to the steel that could interfere with the process. I also want to make sure I'm wearing safety gloves and of course some eye protection anytime you're working with chemicals. So I'm going to take some of my bluing. I'm going to pour what I'm going to use into a separate container. For this project, I'm just going to use a cut up square of an old cotton t-shirt that virtually anybody would probably have around the house. You could use a foam brush, you could use a soft bristle toothbrush. Some people use sprayers depending on the project. But I'm just going to saturate this small piece of cloth t-shirt and start working it into the steel. And I'm sure you can see right away that it's immediately had an effect on the steel and is bluing it. But you wouldn't want to stop there. You want to give the bluing time to etch into the steel. And so I'm going to keep that little piece of cloth saturated and working it back and forth along the steel. I'll move up a little bit and blend as I go, going back over what's already been blued. And when I see my cloth is becoming dirty, just go ahead and set it aside, grab a fresh one, and continue the process. And I'm going to want to do this for at least a couple minutes just to make sure I do a thorough job and I remove all blotches and lines and imperfections in the steel so that it all blends together. You can also dip your project, and that'll be something that we go over in future videos. But for our purposes today, we're just going to apply one small section at a time. One of the nice things about Van's Gun Blue is if you're just doing touch-up work, say some holster wear at the end of the barrel or trigger guard wear, you can go ahead and blue the bare area and go right over the factory bluing, and it won't affect the factory bluing. So for touch-up work, it's really fantastic. You don't need to strip down the whole barrel and create a giant project. Now that I've gone over that, for a while here. I'm going to go ahead and stop. Next thing you want to do is dry the project. I'm just going to use a rag. You could use a heat gun or a hair dryer. That's not necessary. I'm just going to get it dry with this rag, and you can see there's going to be a visible haze on the steel. And so the next thing you do is take 4/0 steel wool, and you scrub that blued area with the 4/0 steel wool, and it immediately takes that haze off the surface and leaves behind a high luster of the bluing that's etched into the steel. And that's the permanent finish that we're looking for. The more I scrub this at this point, the shinier it's going to get. Very beautiful. Finish by protecting it with your favorite gun oil, wax, or lacquer, depending on the project that you're working on, and you're done.